because it's something that pops up in a lot of our discussions is that I hear and I read in the news information about municipalities accepting accessory dwelling units. And over the years, I've been doing this for 30 years, there's been a variety of terms that they refer to these things as: granny flats and granny pods and things of that nature. And what I realized when I was introduced to RJ Adler, who we're going to meet here, is that we number one have not had somebody come on and talk about this unique form of housing, and then I really got charged up when I learned a little bit about RJ's company WheelPad. But what really got me charged up, and the reason that we're doing this on Memorial Day week, when I would have probably opted not to do any discussions, is because RJ's company is going to be featured at the Innovative Housing Showcase on the National Mall. And so I figure this is a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about it. And for some of us here in the Mid-Atlantic, we can go down and check out WheelPad on the mall, as well as a bunch of other providers that really look interesting. So RJ, thanks so much for being here today. Really looking forward to the discussion and learning more about your company and accessory dwelling units as a whole. Before we jump in, tell us a little bit about yourself. Whoops.
I should probably turn my mic on. It's going to make it a lot easier to hear me.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Steve. Really looking forward to chatting today. A little bit about myself. I live in central Vermont in the booming metropolis of Berlin. I get to say Ich bin ein Berliner for the rest of my life. The WheelPad is based down in southern Vermont, and that's where our main manufacturing is. And it's a beautiful, wonderful place. So
I love it. I love it. Well, let's dive into the discussion. I think you've got some slides that you wanted to share with us. And I think what you're going to do is give us a higher level view of accessory dwelling units. And then we're going to learn a little bit about your company and its history and what you guys are doing that's so innovative and unique. So let me duck behind the curtain. And while I do, I'm going to remind everybody, the best part about these discussions is they're live and interactive. So feel free to jump in and make a comment or a question, and we'll make sure that it makes its way to RJ. So take it away, RJ.
Great. Hey, folks. So I'm assuming that everybody can see my screen. You're seeing a real,
we got it.
In its natural Vermont habitat. This is actually our original model. So this picture was taken back in 2018, but our some things have changed about it. We're on our 5th design for this model, but everything that you're seeing here still reigns true. So my plan today is to tell you more about WheelPad, but also tell you more about I'd say the industry in general of both accessory dwelling units, universal design, and small modular. So without any further ado, you are right now looking at a picture of our fearless leader, Julie Lineberger, and her godson, Riley. WheelPad was founded out of a traumatic accident where Riley became a quadriplegic, and he was just about to start a new job out in Portland, Oregon. And he said, hey, no big deal. I'm going to keep moving on with my life. I'm going to find myself an accessible apartment. Well, he did a great job moving on with his life, but it was pretty difficult for him to find an accessible apartment. And he ended up living in a hotel for 18 months while At first, he looked for an accessible apartment, and then he couldn't find one, so they bought and renovated a house to make accessible to suit his needs. Julie and her husband, Joseph, who is behind the camera in this picture, had up until that time been running an architecture firm for 20 years, and that they designed the renovation with Riley, and out of that discussion, out of that experience, is how WheelPad was born. So today I'll give you a little bit more introduction to the industry, as I said, and then I'll talk more about our vision as a company and how we roll here at WheelPad. Feel free to type questions into the chat, and I can see them. Steve is going to read them out, and we'll go from there. So I will look over to my left occasionally because that's where the slides are that you're seeing. But this is our mission. We're dedicated to helping people live in a home that they love. Universally accessible homes keep families together and create true housing choice for all. WheelPad creates housing solutions that make it easy to live, work, and play at home. So industry-wise, right? This is kind of how we build today. Most of the homes that we're building, this is a diagram that you're seeing, about 60% of the homes that we build are single-family detached homes that are made for, 3 to 7 people to live in, depending on, where you're living and how many people are in your family. A much smaller percentage of what we're building today is, single family attached sort of duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, or, large multi-unit houses. This is really similar to the way that we built like 60 years ago. This is how we live today. And what this diagram is showing you is that, most people, 6 out of 10 households have 2 people or 1 person living in them. So, we're building like this, where we're creating houses for a lot of people, but we're living like this, where we don't have a lot of people living in those houses. So part of the housing shortage that we're seeing isn't necessarily that, just that we're not building enough houses, but just that the houses we are building don't suit the way that we're building today. I really love this graph. This graph shows the difference in person households, the number of person households over the last 60 years. So on the y-axis here, you're seeing thousands of households, and on the x-axis here, you're seeing years. So this is a 60 years, over 60 years, you've seen 1 and 2 person households. So 1 person living by themselves or living with 1 other person. Back in the 1960s, it was pretty similar to the number of, households that had 3 or more people living together. But that number of 1 and 2 person households has just skyrocketed over that time. So when I say that, we used to build like this, we are still building like we were living in the 1960s. So it's there's no sort of one reason, just like there's no one solution to the housing shortage in this country. But this is, I think, a really interesting frame to look at it, or to look through. And what we can do is we can bring in the idea of accessory dwelling units, which are a small separate living unit that is on a property that is otherwise built to house 1 family. These accessory dwelling units, or ADUs as they're called, colloquially, there we go, RJ talks. They're known as, in-law suites, They're known as granny pods. They're known as flats, depending on where you are in the country. And that's one of the things that Steve went into earlier today. And it's just like there's no one no one reason, there's no one solution. This is one solution of many to the way that we can create more density and have more people live in the built environment that exists. So, different towns feel differently about accessory dwelling units, but more and more towns are becoming open to the idea that lots that used to just be single family, zoned for single family residential might be able to have one or even two accessory dwelling units sometimes. And these accessory dwelling units can be an attachment that you build onto the house. They could be, converting a garage or building a detached unit on the property, or using the basement or the roof, the attic to create those spaces. Before I dive into universal accessibility, are there any questions about accessory dwelling units?
Nothing that's popped up yet, but I can anticipate some of the information that you're going to be sharing with us. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut and not ask the question. But we've got it looks like we've got some folks that are actually, what is the name? Okay. What is the name of the event where we can see your dwelling units? Oh, and so that is the Innovative Housing Showcase. I dropped that into chat, but will you be bringing down one of your dwelling units there?
You bet. Yeah, you can come and see a real WheelPad in real life. And it's going to be, our spot is just in front of the Air and Space Museum. I've actually got a diagram at the very end that shows where we're going to be. The event is from June 9th through 11th. And that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday next week. And it's open to the public. So you can come and see WheelPad, but you can also see a number of other housing solutions.
There was, I saw on the list, there's a company that makes 3D printed homes. So it's definitely some innovative company there that you're with. Let's see. Now we're going to get into WheelPad in a bit, but just to reiterate, somebody asked, are units available now, or do they have to be ordered? But hey, RJ, if you want to answer that question now, that'd be great.
The shorter answer is yes, they're available now and they have to be ordered.
Okay.
We're ramping up production, and we've got a few different contract manufacturers. At this point, we're about 3 to 6 months out from delivery. But in a lot of cases, that is faster than you'd be able to find somebody on site. And we're building more and more every day. So,
and in addition, there are definitely some hurdles that I think you'll probably share with us that an individual has to go through in their municipality to get approval to do the accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah. And as I said, municipalities are getting more and more open to the idea of putting in an accessory dwelling unit, be it a modular solution like WheelPad or something that's stick built on site, because towns and cities are recognizing there is a housing shortage and we need to do something about it. One would have to deal with neighborhood covenants as well. One of the things that I like about WheelPad or modular solutions in general is that, well, if they could be moved once, they can probably be moved again. WheelPad offers to lease or repurchase our products depending on how the family wants to use them. And it also depends on what kind of story you're telling with your accessory dwelling unit. If you are building something because you want your mom to move in so she doesn't have to go to a nursing home, it's a lot different than saying, oh, I want to build a short-term rental in my backyard. Mm-hmm. And we can if folks want to meet at the coffee shop after the podcast and talk about short-term rental and what it's the good and bad. It's not black and white like everything else, but because WheelPad is in this spot of being potentially temporary structure, it can kind of skirt some zoning codes, or it can make people feel comfortable that it's just it's for a real need as opposed to an investment property or something like that.
I love it. All right. Well, I know let's keep on going, and then we'll address some more questions throughout.
Great. So I'll give people 5 seconds or so, or 10 seconds to read this comic. So what this is really showing, this comic here, is a bunch of kids waiting to get into school, and it's snowy. This is a Vermont artist, and there's a man shoveling the stairs to get into the school, and there's one student in a wheelchair saying, "Hey, can you shovel the ramp?" And he says, "Well, all these other kids are waiting to get in, so let me just shovel the stairs, and then I can shovel the ramp afterwards." And the student in the wheelchair says, "But if you shovel the ramp, we're all going to be able to get in." And I've actually had the great fortune of chatting with the artist, who wasn't necessarily an advocate before he made these drawings, and he sort of this spoke to so many people. But really the idea is that universal accessibility, and the reason that this is entitled accessible dwelling units and not just accessory dwelling units, universal accessibility and universal design is better for everyone. We all have times throughout our day, times throughout our life that we have a disability, whether it's something permanent, temporary, or situational. I think these are some great examples here of, you could be hearing impaired because you have tinnitus, and that's a permanent, permanent disability. Or maybe you just ruptured your eardrum, so it's going to be a couple weeks and you're going to have a little bit of trouble hearing. Or maybe you're going to be at a concert and it's really loud and you can't hear, right? All of these are situations where you have a disability. It's just the reason is something different. I recently became a dad, and I totally dig it. And I've got a really happy kid, and her name is Lilia, and we named her after a gigantic troll in the state of Maine. And that means that I've found myself quite a lot over the last 13 months where I have a situational disability, because maybe I have one arm and I'm trying to open the car door, get my kid inside the house, or, maybe I'm pushing a stroller up the 3 awkward steps that I have to get into the 200-year-old house that I live in. And it would be easier in those situations if we had a more accessible built space. So the idea that accessibility is only for a certain section of the population, no way. Accessibility is better for everyone. Are there other examples that folks can think of other types of either permanent, situational, or temporary disabilities?
Well, sprained ankle, can't walk. I think we've all dealt with that. Thanks for sharing that, Gene. The other thing that I always like to remind, especially new parents, is that your child, while he may not be disabled, is in a wheelchair, but we call it a stroller.
Yeah, I love that reframing. I mean, obviously, of course, that's the, it's essentially what it is. But I'd never thought about it that way.
Yeah, and those ramps make it really convenient not to wake up your child bumping over the steps. Kitty says recovering from a knee or hip surgery. Elaine says balance issues.
Yeah, I was speaking with a universal design architect, or actually, was I speaking with them or was I listening to a podcast? Either way, she was saying, sometimes in the shower, it's nice to have a grab bar just if you have a headache, right? Another example from being a parent, we had this little plastic tub for my daughter when she was smaller that she would take a bath in. And then we would have to put it in the tub. And then I have a bad back. So every time I'm trying to get her out of the tub, out of her infant tub, she was, she had soap on her, she was squirmy, and I didn't want to drop her, but it was sort of this terrifying moment of carrying her over the edge of the tub, which is this, of course, very hard surface. Fortunately, I didn't drop my kid, but if we had had a roll-in shower in the 200-year-old house that we bought, it wouldn't be an issue. We're fixing things as we go along. But it's just to say that the built environment doesn't work as well for folks.
And let's see, Sarah talks about vision impairment or surgery, like macular degeneration where you've been, but I know there's vision impairment is a key element of impairment that helps us, makes it difficult to navigate our environments.
Yeah. So the idea that if you've ever had your eyes dilated at the eye doctor, right, you have to walk around with these big sunglasses throughout the rest of the day. That is sort of a temporary vision disability. You might not be able to drive home, type of thing. So thanks for the examples. So a little bit more on sort of the housing crisis, the problem. There's 61 million adults living in the United States with a disability, and 13% of those have mobility challenges, right? So there is a targeted population of people that need accessibility all the time, even though it is, better for all these people, better for everybody. So there's, in less than 10% of homes in America are even minimally accessible. So there's almost 9 million people out there that need an accessible home and don't have one. So as we're thinking about building, new accessory dwelling units, new multifamily units, new single family, whatever, accessibility should be top of the list for design for a number of reasons.
Well, I tell you, RJ, most of our audience is in the Mid-Atlantic. And if you go back to that one slide there, it really is telling the style of homes that we have in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast are predominantly colonials with bedrooms on the top floor and entryways. And I've always admired, the Southwest style of homes that are predominantly ranch style. And I imagine that that being in the world of universal design out in the Southwest and Southeast is probably a little bit easier than in the Mid-Atlantic to come up with solutions.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that is also just they have a little bit more space available out there. At the same time, they don't have a lot of water. So, that's another professional's job to fix. But a lot of it has to do with settlement patterns. And, I'm sure if the West was settled before the East, we'd see a similar,
Yeah, really good point. But all right. Yeah, no, I think let's see. Well, there was
there was someone, the ADU be built to include electricity, plumbing, and air conditioning. That's from Gene. WheelPad certainly has all those things. An accessory dwelling unit is required to have a kitchen, a bathroom, and an area to sleep, or else it is not, it is not an ADU. So depending on, where you're at, you might need AC, you might not, type of thing. Certainly anywhere south of New England, yes. But if you're designing from scratch, you can put in all those kind of things. WheelPad makes it easy to include those things. It's heated and cooled by a heat pump, and that provides heating and cooling.
Great, excellent.
So what can we do, right? This is what we can do as a company, as WheelPad, but also what we can do to solve this both housing and accessibility crisis is to build out accessible dwelling units. So this first picture here, these are all WheelPad examples. This is Julie standing next to the first WheelPad installation that we ever did. You can see it's connected to a home, and we built that connector to have a ramp. So when we're putting in accessibility, right, this connector can be a little smaller, it can be a little bigger, depending on what's needed. We have a wider model called the XL, which is 12 feet wide, accommodates a queen size bed. And then this is a rendering of a studio pad model that has a little kitchen in it. These models all are just bedrooms and bathrooms. And then we can take our models and put them together to create what we call multi-pad. And that, using something that has, either a studio pad or putting it, building it together on site is really what creates a separate unit that would be an ADU. So technically, what we're building is just a bedroom and bathroom with our smaller units. That's not an accessory dwelling unit, in that you probably wouldn't be able to get it zoned to rent out if that's what you were looking to do. It's really meant to be a support vehicle, sidecar for somebody that is needs universally accessible supports in a space that either it would take too long or be too expensive to make it make it accessible. Yes, Michelle, these slides will be shared. So this is an interior shot of our smaller WheelPad, the smallest option, which is a suite pad. As I said, it's a bedroom and a bathroom. And there are a lot of features in here that say, hey, this is a universally designed space. And there are a lot of features in here that say that you wouldn't be able to tell that it's universally designed. So there's a track in the ceiling to help transition from the bedroom to the bathroom. There are, certainly a big wide open bathroom, and the entire bathroom is a wet room. So you're able to roll right in, and you're right in the shower. This is much larger than what would be considered an ADA shower, which is 40 by 60 inches. So the ADA is our baseline for a lot of things. This is looking the other direction. You can see there's great big windows, lets in a lot of natural light. This family decided to build their connector through the sliding glass door, but you can build it through the sliding glass door or the swing door. And you'll be able to see it a little bit better in other photos, but we have a wainscoting on the wall that is there. It's both decorative and functional, because it's a plywood wainscoting. And if you were to bump it, oftentimes the folks that are living in WheelPad are new to using their wheelchair, and they might bang up the walls. And what do you know? It's a lot easier to fix a piece of wooden wainscoting than it is to fix an entire wall. So there's, hidden and hidden universally accessible features and not so hidden features. So this is kind of looking across. This is the swing door. This is the sliding glass door. You can connect through either door to existing dwelling, or it can be freestanding in the backyard. There's nothing that says it has to be connected physically. It certainly makes it easier to roll in and out without going outside. But you could, we've got somebody actually on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State that installed a WheelPad in their backyard. They're leasing it for about a year for their brother. And he is living in the backyard, separate enough from his family, but rolls into the house for meals. This is a video that's slightly sped up of a delivery in Burlington, Vermont. Steve, can you see it? Or I hope you all can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Great, excellent. This is slightly sped up. You're going to hear somebody that sounds like a chipmunk a little later. But one of the things I love about this video is that Dale, who's one of our drivers, he's able to squeak this in 6 inches away from the house, which is just incredible. That's the homeowner. And you can see that, this is Burlington, Vermont, so it's not exactly the most booming metropolis in the world, but this is a 1/4 acre lot, and we're able to squeeze the pad in there pretty easily. It's a 8.5 feet wide by 24 feet long model. And then after we get it next to the house, we're going to build a connector to the house. So this shows a very simple connector in Brattleboro, Vermont, where here's the exterior, here's the interior. You're able to roll through, in this case, it was for a grandfather living with his kids and his grandkids. He was able to roll through for meals. They took out a window on the side of their house. They turned it into an archway and then, roll back into his pad. And one of the things that the family, who you'll meet later in this presentation, said is that the WheelPad is acoustically isolating, where, dad was on a different schedule from, dad and the kids were on a different schedule from grandpa, and they wouldn't bother each other early in the morning or late at night. So this is a wider model version. It shows a better picture of that wainscoting. Also shows all of our outlets are 30 inches off the ground, because it's just easier to get at. It's no more expensive or less expensive to have your outlets higher. It's just more accessible. And the reason we did that is that, especially with modern computer equipment, from a seated position, it can be really difficult to pull those out of the wall at 18 inches, which is what the ADA requires. So this model has all of the same features, but it more easily accommodates a queen size bed. Because it's wide, it does require a professional delivery. Our other model is built such that you can pull it behind a regular pickup truck with a regular driver's license if you feel comfortable doing that. All of the materials that we're building with are natural, and that's for 2 reasons. One, it's because we're goddamn dirty hippies from Vermont, and the second is that oftentimes folks that are new to having disabilities, especially if it's a sudden disability, might develop a sensitivity to a toxin that they never had before. And there's a lot of toxins in our built environment, so we want to minimize those as much as possible. I don't have a question slide here, but I'll leave it on here because I've been yapping for a little while.
Well, one of the questions that came in that you answered is WheelPad means that it's on wheels. And you illustrated that really well. And I'm assuming that the ability to construct these and easily transport them creates a huge opportunity compared to other modular home designs.
I would say less compared to other modular home designs. Certainly the fact that it's on a trailer and can stay on that trailer, puts it more in the accessibility standpoint of somebody that can't necessarily move it with a crane. But modular housing in general is going to be beneficial for anyone that's in certainly a more rural area where labor is a little short, because one team can install multiple modular homes in the time that it would take them to build one specific, stick-built home. Elaine asked about the cost of owning and the cost of leasing. I will get into those costs later.
And then we have a few questions about insulation and with Sarah and Jeanette asking about insulation, as well as what about energy consumption for heating and cooling of the living unit that has no foundation. How effective is the insulation?
Yeah. So the WheelPad itself is built out of structurally insulated panels. So it's actually, the exterior shell is only 12 pieces. And that does a lot for keeping it as a tight, insulated space that's insulated much more like a house than what you would find on a, something else built on a trailer, like a travel trailer or an RV. And when we install it, if we install it on the trailer, or if we take it off and put it on a pier foundation, we require that the homeowners build a skirting around the bottom of it, and that helps out a lot with insulation. So our floor insulation is R25. The walls are R35, and the ceiling is closer to R40. For those of you that speak insulation, that R level is the measure by which insulation is calculated, and those are very typical for what you see in other built houses. It's a very small space, and the heat pump is actually oversized. They don't build a small enough heat pump for it, so it takes very little energy to heat and cool in that way. So,
excellent.
Other questions?
Let's see. None that have popped up on the radar right now. You're going to talk about owning versus leasing.
Yeah, I'll mention that later. So stay tuned, Elaine. So the multi-pad here is the option that kind of shows building multiple pads together, and you can do this with 1, 2, or up to 5 pads, where this we did for a school in New Hampshire. So the blue and yellow areas of this plan are our suite pad models, the bedroom and bathroom. And then we built them all together with this one unit that has 3 kitchenettes. So we've created a 3-unit apartment building. And by building small modular, you bring the hard stuff in on site, your plumbing and your electric. And then you're just kind of, putting a foundation together and putting some carpentry together on site. It gives you the flexibility of on-site building with the predictability of a modular build. And since we were born out of a design firm, we can create around whatever the pad is that you're looking for. And our customers have come back to us with more ideas that we could ever dream of. So it's really fun to have these kinds of conversations. So again, this one was in New Hampshire. So there. Questions about any of the pad?
Let's see. If the house is not connected to town water and sewer, but has a septic tank for plumbing, how do you plan and adjust for that?
Yeah, so with any accessory dwelling unit on septic, that's going to be an issue. Depending on the town, it's going to be different. Of course, there's the circumstances where you might have to build a new septic system, right? If it's not big enough, that is obviously an expensive endeavor. In the state of Vermont, and I know in other states, septic systems are actually built by bedroom, not by bathroom. And you can move a bedroom in your house. Oftentimes, it's as easy as taking a closet door off its hinges and putting it in the basement, and suddenly it's an at-home office, right? So that sort of gives you the space to build another bedroom somewhere else. Towns that's sort of one of the hurdles that you're going to need to look into with building something permanent, building a permanent addition. Oftentimes we've been able to skirt that with a wheel pad if it's, known to be a temporary structure. And it, because the person's going to recover, or because mom's only going to live there for so long, or, maybe in some more unfortunate cases, it might be something like ALS, where it's only going to be 2 to 5 years before the family is not going to need it anymore.
Yep. Okay, couple of more questions here. So when you're referring to that multi-unit building, are all those units on wheels?
No, those were taken off their wheels, and
Okay.
that was all built on one foundation.
And then someone asked, will you be developing a cottage pad for clients who want a larger freestanding home?
Somebody must have been looking at our website, because yes, cottage pad. It is still in the works.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then I imagine, let's see, Elaine says, I would imagine that property taxes would be due certainly on the attached ADUs. What about the non-attached?
That is a very specific question based on the town.
Okay.
Certain towns don't know how to assess a property with an ADU. And it makes it difficult to have a clear answer, but that's something that on a town by town basis can be looked into. I'd say yes, property tax bill might go up slightly, but the other options for accessibility can be pretty expensive. And the property tax increase probably wouldn't be quite as expensive as, say, sending someone to a nursing home.
Got
So, Michelle, a cottage pad would be WheelPad's version of a 1-bedroom backyard, backyard cottage.
And I imagine that would be detached from the wheels as well.
Any of our wider models are, it's not something that can easily be moved again. So yeah, that makes it.
So I'm looking at the clock as usual. The time just flies by in these discussions. The one thing, okay. Yeah, let's see what you got here.
Okay. This is a video of John and Bob Evans.
This is so exciting. This is going to be a huge opportunity for Dad, and beautiful. Love it.
Well, thank you for designing this WheelPad as well as helping us to put it together.
Been a pleasure. I'm really glad you're able to be back home.
Yeah. Looking forward to it, really.
Thank you.
So John was able to spend the rest of his life living with Bob. And, all because, WheelPad provided that. They first called us in March of 2020, and within a month we were able to get them a pad on site. And they had a volunteer crew that was able to help them build it out to connect it to their house. So, with small modular, things can move really quickly. And, we're sad that John is no longer with us, but, Bob has expressed so many times to us how amazing it was that he was able to, live with his family for the rest of his time, as opposed to being in a rehab facility or a nursing home, which unfortunately during the pandemic may have made that shorter.
And now this is a great segue towards leasing versus buying. It says here that they signed a lease. So did this family, they rented this from your company versus buying it?
Yep. So they leased it from us for just about 2 years. And then we've actually recently taken this back and refurbished it. And that model is sort of in our inventory, ready to go out to the next family.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well,
Yeah,
that
there we
was going
go.
to be my next question. Is what does the pricing look like?
Yeah, so SweetPad, which is our bedroom and bathroom model, the lease is $3,250 per month, and the purchase is $104,000. That includes delivery, and in the case of the lease, it also includes pickup. The Studio Pad lease, it's a little longer and it has a kitchen, that's $4,000 a month for a lease and $140,000 for a purchase. The larger pads that are wider, those are a custom build. Those are going to be, that's why they have the little tilde before those prices, because depending on where you are in the country, it makes it, more or less expensive to deliver, because it's a special delivery with a special driver and permits and all those things. We do have families, like I was mentioning with ALS, where maybe it's going to be 2 years, maybe it's going to be 5 years. We don't really know. And we offer to repurchase a WheelPad in the event that, a family doesn't know what they know. They don't want it forever, but they don't know what that temporary need is going to be. So if, you purchase it and you can finance it however you want to purchase it, and then we'll buy it back from you when your family's done with it, after we get it appraised by a third party, and then we would bring it back in-house, refurbish it, and then send it out. So there's a few questions here. Can we do lease to buy? We don't have sort of a lease to own option. The PAD is an acronym. It is personal accessible dwelling. But WheelPad, pad, it just, it rolls off the tongue pretty easily. So a few more slides here before we get to the hour. With modular options like WheelPad, it's versus other rental options, right, would be going to an assisted living facility or a private nursing facility. For the same reason that somebody might choose to make internal renovations on their home, you get to stay in your home, stay in your community, manage your routines. I'm sure the professionals in the audience could answer better than I can why it's better for somebody to stay, in that space. So, that's sort of one of the reasons that it would make sense to stay at home. Also, if you don't have to go to a facility, your ability, the lease is much less expensive than what you would find for a monthly cost at the facility if you're renting. If you do the buyback, there's also a way to sort of recapture that equity. So that's what this graph is showing, is sort of the cost per year for leasing. And I'm moving quickly because I want to make time for questions at the end.
Yep.
In terms of doing an accessible renovation or building a small house on site, having a WheelPad or any modular construction is going to be relatively cost competitive, but it's not going to make you, it's going to be much more time efficient. You're not going to have to, live through a construction process in your backyard, which I did in my 20s. And that was really fun when I was fixing up a house, but it's hard to do when you're caring for somebody else. So it's a quick install. A lot of the decisions are already made. When you're moving mom or dad in, you don't want to think about the trim in the bathroom and what that's going to look like. We do offer the ability to buy it back as well, as I was talking about earlier. It's going to be pretty cost competitive based on, especially where you are in the country, to the cost of building on site. It's just going to take a lot less time. How does the plumbing work? So that was from Laura. Essentially the pad comes and it's ready to be connected to wastewater, water, and electricity. And it takes a certified plumber, a certified electrician about half a day to make those connections. ideally through the existing infrastructure on site in the home. In some cases, we'll dig a trench to the septic tank if it's easiest, but we like to go through the basement, and it's not a proprietary technology. So, we're looking for a 2-amp, a 2-pole 50-amp breaker for your electric, which your local plumber and electrician is probably installing one right now. It's a regular stuff. So this is where we're going to be on the National Mall. So just off of 7th Street. It's kind of small because you're seeing us there, but my cursor is over it right now. It's if you're standing in front of the Air and Space Museum and you just walk straight across the street, don't actually, because that's dangerous. You'll be able to see our model there. That's on, from June 9th to 11th. And then we're going to be able to see folks. If you can't make those days, shoot me an email and I might be able to sneak you in a little early.
Cool. And I shared your contact info in there. Let me share it again. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that. This is a really good overview of accessory dwelling units, but then showing us your innovative approach. And let's see. Someone says hospice care. Can this be used for hospice and end of life care or new beginning of life care? And I'm assuming actually the case study that you shared with us, he passed away there in the WheelPad, correct?
Yeah, we don't prescribe how people use the space. So certainly it can be used for, hospice or something like that. And that goes down to, we used to have this built-in flip-up desk. We don't do that anymore because that meant that area could only ever be a desk.
Yeah. That's great.
Kitty, I can make the slides available.
Yeah, if you send those to me, I will put them on the link with the recording.
Great.
And then let's see, Suzanne asks, are any of these costs covered by Medicare?
So Medicare pays for care, not housing. And so that would take an act of Congress to change. So unfortunately not right now, but we are working on it. We're actually working on building a smaller model bath pad, which is, hopefully going to be priced such that it could be considered durable medical equipment.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Okay. And then let's see. Someone says, manage your daily life routines is so important. So many of us want to stay at home or close to home. Thanks for including this and part of the teaching and education. What days will you be there on the mall before June 9th? How many days?
Yeah, so the pad is arriving on June 6th.
Okay.
And then there's a soft opening on the 8th.
Okay.
So if none of those days work, I may be able, again, shoot me a text. I might be able to sneak you in. Somebody asked here, wondering about safety, seems vulnerable to break-ins. Certainly, all the doors lock and things like that. I would say it's no more or less vulnerable than another, dwelling on that property. And depending on how you build the connector, it can seem like it's more part of the house.
And let's see, Michelle Higgs, who's part of a home sharing program, has her hand up. Sometimes this is by mistake, but Michelle, did you have a question? And if not, no worries.
Yeah, sorry, I put my hand up for something, but I think I got my answer. So,
okay, great, no worries. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think we got through all of them here, and it's 1 o'clock on the dot. This has been great. Congrats on being selected for the Innovative Housing showcase, and I can see why. Let's see, this is always happens when I say we're going to wrap it up. Someone says bath pad small enough to be considered durable medical equipment, paid for and covered by Medicare. Great idea. Is that the concept? Is that the bath pad?
The concept is that we've had a lot of people call us saying, I don't actually need more space, but I just need the bathroom.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we can get it covered by Medicare, yes, 100%, we're going to do that. I don't know which iteration of the design is going to come there. You know, right now, we're about 3 months out from delivering an individual suite pad. Bath pad is probably going to hit towards next year. You know, probably 12 months from now. Studio pad will be ready about 8 months from now. So all excited.
And then Suzanne had a question about working with homeowners associations and this, that, and the other. But I imagine because you've had so many case studies that when folks are interested and they call you, you can kind of guide them through the steps that they need to take. I know every municipality is different, but give them an idea of where to start.
And then when you add in HOAs, it makes it that much more difficult. So the first thing that we do is we take a little deposit on the model and we make sure that the town is going to accept it, the HOA is going to accept it. And if it's not, if there's no way that we can get it through, well, then we're going to say, okay, we'll, there's an out for the customer in the contract at that point.
Okay.
So there's protections built in there.
Okay.
Let's put the dates in the chat. Someone was asking again, June 9 to 11. And on Friday, it's from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And the weekend is 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
And I put a website on there, that the one that I found that looks like an official website.
I believe the one. So.
Yeah, but there's lots of, I think this will be really interesting to see some of these other innovative housing ideas as well.
Yeah.
So it'll be an enjoyable trip, and you can go to the Air and Space Museum if you haven't been there in a while.
Yeah. Fortunately, I've had a number of chances to go down to DC. Last time I got my daughter, who was 5 months old, I got her asleep in front of a bunch of national monuments. Got pictures of it. So
I love it. All right. Well, RJ, we'll see you in a few weeks here, and I guess next week, right?
Yeah.
So I'll definitely mark this on my calendar to try to get down there. And thanks so much for introducing this concept. And everybody, again, thanks for your participation and your questions. It's what really makes this great. And somebody says, Steve, are you going to report on the event? I will do my very best to do something like that. I think that would make a great idea. So, all right, folks. Well, enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day week if you're taking a break, and we will be talking to y'all next week at our next discussions. Thanks a lot, RJ.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity. See y'all